We already need your technical expertise. We're going to put up road plans.
Alright, Marty, just let me know when you're ready, please. Do you want to see? Yeah, you should be.
I'll go listen. I just have to be close to the door.
Yeah, at the table. Back here.
You can have my seat.
I'm ready whenever you want. Thank you, Marty. I can make myself heard from here. Yeah, I think that
Well, if there's no presentation,
Safety hazard.
let's sit behind everybody.
I'm digging that, Sean.
let's get you up next to John and Dan.
You're looking ready for something.
Oh, maybe it's
Yeah. Wishful thinking.
sure.
Just so you're close. All right, everybody, we're going to get started. Are we ready, Sean? You all set? Can you do work on anything? All right, we'll start because we get our work really good. All right, everyone, I call the Wednesday, May 3rd, Tisbury School Building Committee meeting to order. Welcome, everybody.
And we don't have any other school committee members, do we?
We posted it, though.
Right, but we don't have a quorum for
No,
school
so we don't
committee,
need to
so.
start. No, Amy and Janet are not here. And if there are any guests here, or actually, I think committee members also, we have a sheet going around. We need you to sign in, please.
Yeah, everybody needs to sign in, it's the attendance sheet.
Yeah, and any committee members, we'd like to have you as close to the table as we possibly can. Because when we start having discussion, it's really hard if you're not, if you're a committee member removed, it's hard to have you included in the discussion with other people here. Even if we can get beat up somehow, or maybe up here. Yeah, we have a seat up here right here to Jay, can we have you come up, please? Jay is here too. I just want to make sure the committee members are around the table or close to the table for discussion. Where's the attendance sheet right now?
Mike's got it.
Perfect.
Okay.
All right, so our first item we're going to table right now, and you'll understand why in a minute. So we have an open meeting law complaint that I'm going to let John explain, and we will take some action on that.
Thank you. And Jay, please interrupt me as necessary. I wanted to, unfortunately, acknowledge the receipt of an open meeting law complaint for the school building committee meeting held on April 12th, 2017. So I'm acknowledging receipt of that. I communicated with the Board of Selectmen, with Jay Grandy, and with Town Council. Per Town Council's advice, directive, I would say, I notified the individual who registered the complaint, and I will read the letter to you all so you're fully aware of what I communicated with that individual. I wanted to reach out to you regarding the open meeting law violation claim for the Wednesday, April 12th Tisbury School Building Committee meeting. I am embarrassed by this and acknowledge that it is my mistake. I submit agendas for the Tisbury School Committee and Tisbury School Building Committee meetings. I print out a copy of the agendas and I post them on the school's front door. All committee members are sent notices of the meetings with the agendas. My error in handling the April 12th Tisbury School Building Committee meeting was that I did not also submit it as a joint meeting with the school committee. The email list that I use for the school committee meetings includes the town clerk, so these meetings are then properly posted at Town Hall. The email list for the Tisbury School Building Committee meetings previously did not include the town clerk, but now do, as I've updated it to avoid further mistakes. The Tisbury School Committee meeting, held at 4 p.m. on April 12th, was posted properly. The Tisbury School Building Committee meeting at 5 o'clock on April 12th, unfortunately, was not posted properly as the agenda was not received by the town clerk. I emailed notice of the meeting to Tisbury School Building Committee members on April 6th, 6 days prior to the meeting, and posted the agenda on the school's front door. However, it was not posted at town meeting, and it was not posted at Town Hall, therefore this was completely my error. While it was not an intentional oversight, still it remained my responsibility. I regret it. I've taken steps to ensure it does not happen again. I believe that all other Tisbury School Committee meetings have been properly posted. I appreciate your interest and involvement, and I understand the concerns. I apologize for the headaches this has caused, and I would share that with all of you as well. So, I communicated that on April 20th to the individual. Per town council, who again I met with prior to town meeting with Jay Grandy, placed that on this agenda at tonight's meeting, the complaint, acknowledging it, and also included item 3 on our agenda for tonight, which includes any action taken at the April 12th Tisbury School Building Committee meeting, which would have to be revisited. Am I correct in that? I think that's what David said. So the minutes for the April 12th meeting, the draft minutes are around, and if I've read them correctly, and I've read them several times, there were 3 actions taken by the committee. One was to vote to accept the March 22nd minutes. One was to remove the Tashmoo well site, from further consideration as an option. And the third action taken was to approve the money for the archaeological study on the Manter site.
Through the chair,
Yes.
I would like to make a motion to incorporate the discussions and notes that you handed out as part of the permanent record. Someone could second that.
Second.
Any discussion on that?
I'm sorry, this is a motion to.
Accept the notes that were in.
So you want this draft?
I want that incorporated into the record officially.
Right, and it was seconded by Dan Seidman. Okay, any other discussion? Okay, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed or abstentions?
And then I think you need to do the individual
Yep.
votes.
And also, John went to the selectmen last night, the Board of Selectmen meeting, and went through
Where
this
they
again.
acknowledged this.
Right, so he's done his due diligence. It was obviously an oversight, but it was very serious. It's an open law meeting violation, but I think we can move on from that. So what I'd like to do now is just go over the April 12th meeting minutes and retake those votes. Everybody's okay with that? Okay. So,
Excuse me, Colleen?
yes.
Before you get
Yeah,
started,
oh,
we probably need
Sorry,
to
you just
call.
walked in. Hello.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Hi.
So excuse us, we have to call a meeting to order.
Calling the Tisbury School Committee meeting to order at 5:08. 5:09.
Great, thank you, Amy. Okay, so, first I will entertain a motion. To approve the minutes of March 22nd, 2017. Okay,
Second.
Dan seconded. Any discussion? All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed or abstentions?
I'm sorry,
Yes.
everybody who's a member of the committee and voted, raise their hands just so I get a count.
Sure.
Is this the building?
Yeah, the school building committee,
Building
yes.
Well, about 1,
Put them up
2,
high so you
3,
can see, thank you.
4, you're not, Matt, you're not on the committee?
I'm on
He's
the
not
committee, I'm not a
voting.
voting
He's not a
member.
voting member.
Ah,
We have two,
Fine.
yes, you're.
You live in
yes.
Tisbury.
5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14. Okay, there are 14 members present?
Yes. We have 15,
Oh, sorry.
yeah, it's just,
Thank you.
okay. So, okay, so the second, I will entertain a motion to, remove the Tashmoo well site from consideration.
So moved.
Is there a I'm sorry, who's second? Belinda. We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed or abstentions? Okay, thank you. And then the third one. Okay, so this one is to approve, I need, will entertain a motion to approve $6,488 for a required Manter site archaeological study and not more than $4,400 for a Manter site traffic study.
So moved.
Dan, a second? Second. Melinda seconded. Any discussion? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Nays, abstentions? Thank you very much. And John, thank you for all of your work on this.
Thanks for understanding.
Okay, so we'll move along to our, how are we doing with our presentation, Peter? Do you need this? Do you want to skip anything? So we have the architect update on options 2, 3, and 5. You want to skip that for anyone who just comes up? Okay. Update on archaeological study, traffic study, is that all in here?
No, I can just do that. So the archaeologist was on site, at the Manter site last week. They did basically a non-invasive walkthrough of the site with some probing. They found no surface indication and no disturbance present or previous, no recording of any important archaeological artifacts there. However, However, given the terrain and the proximity to other sites near Lagoon Pond, they suggest, and they will send a suggestion to Mass Historical, a more intensive survey of the project if the site is selected in the areas where the legacy district.
Great. Traffic study?
Traffic study, so the count data has been collected. They were out here last week collecting counts for both sites and crash data. They received that. We anticipate having a draft report on May 12th from them.
Okay, great. And then the last.
And natural heritage, we haven't, I've tried to contact them. They sent in the application a couple weeks ago, but I haven't had any luck getting a response from them yet about the determination of the species on the two sites.
So we probably have that for the next meeting.
Should probably be.
Okay. Wonderful, thank you. Any questions, discussion on that? Okay. So the survey.
Colleen,
Yes.
was there a consensus on these notes? The April 12th notes?
Was there consensus meeting? I tabled the minutes until we figured out what we're gonna do going forward, so we'll just take care of them at the next meeting.
At the next meeting?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, that's fine, thank you.
Is that what you were addressing?
Yes.
Okay. Wonderful. Okay, so I want to give huge thanks to Christina Opper, who got me organized over a long weekend, and I thank you again for everything that we did, because she went above and beyond with getting us up and running on the website, the Survey Monkey, because of the deadline that we put on there, kind of I did last minute, and thank you again. That is. So we had the Survey Monkey up, if everybody's not aware of. Hopefully everybody's seen the website that was, announcing it. The brochures were handed out at the town meeting. We had the link on there. We had 4 boxes for the paper surveys at Town Hall, Senior Center, here at the school, and at the library. Got some from each one, not a lot, but got some. So that was great. So we had, obviously people appreciated the different methods that we used to let them give their surveys back. If I have this number right, and I didn't remember, I think it's 192. Yes, okay. So we had 192. So what I did was when I got the paper surveys, I manually entered them so that they were included in the entire survey. It's interesting. I'm not a technologically savvy person. It took me about 2 hours, but I figured it out. So everybody can be continually educated by this project. So anyways, 192 surveys. We do have a presentation at some point that will break down a lot of the information, but I can start kind of giving some of the things that I know people had asked about, and then I'll let the presentation speak for itself. So the zip code breakdown, which I know was one of the things that I couldn't find on the survey that broke it down, but I did it by hand just in case. Get it on the boat, so I know it's in here. I think there were 155 people. I'll find it. I think there were 155 people that filled. Oh, here it is. Okay. Oh, it's been one of those days. So 136. I'm sorry. So we got zip codes from 136 of the 192 respondents. 136 gave their zip codes. Of those, oh my God, I'm sorry. Can we strike that? Of the 192, 155 people gave the responses. Of those 155 for the zip codes, 136 gave Tisbury 02568. 6 people gave Edgartown 02539. Please correct me if I'm wrong, I'm not familiar with. 7 gave 02557, which I believe is Oak Bluffs. 5 gave 02575, which I believe is West Tisbury. And this one I do not know, maybe somebody will know. 1 gave 02535. Oh. Thank you. Okay, so just to get, so obviously the majority were from Tisbury, but we did have some. I did not look to see of those people if they were all staff members. I didn't check that, I can. Not everybody identified themselves, but I'm making an assumption that the majority of other zip codes might have been staff members, but I can't confirm that right now at this minute. So hopefully that information is helpful for the survey. Christina, do you have anything else you want to add? I know that you, until we can see it on the slide. Okay, so I can tell you, this is probably, oh boy. I can tell you, thank you, I have it in here somewhere. You see how tiny this is, it's tiny print. Okay, I can do that. So of the site options, and this, I'm going to try to say this so that it's not too confusing. It breaks down the number of 192 people, but it breaks, to me, more importantly, the percentage, because it makes it more applicable, or understandable, I guess. So, for the first choice of people, renovation and expansion or addition, we'll say, of the current site was 46.35 of the respondents, or 89, that chose that as their first site option. 19.79, or 38 people, 38, said new construction at the current site, and 33.85 for the first choice said new construction at the Manter well land, which is 65 people. So when you add that 46 and 20, so roughly 66% preferred the existing site. I can't even see on it. Preferred the existing site, regardless of the option. So then if you said what was your second option, 16.15% or 31 people said renovation and expansion at the current site, but 72.92% said new construction at the current location, or 140 people. And then 10.94% or 21 people said new construction at the Manter well. So when you move on to the third choice, renovation and expansion of the current site, 37.5% or 72 people. New construction at the current site is 7.29% or 14 people. And new construction at the Manter well is 55.21 or 106, I think that says, 106, could be 105. On that. But I have it here, I meant to print it out for everybody and just ran out of time today. So anyways, hopefully those numbers help, but I think, as we'll see from the presentation, I think there is of the people that fill out the survey, the 192 people, it's kind of 2/3 of the people indicated some preference of the current site, as opposed to 1/3 the Manter. Does that mean anything? We'll know, when we start making decisions. So that kind of sums up, because I know that's kind of what we were trying to get at. And there was a lot of great information. I could pass these around. I printed out the Survey Monkey. I'm not that familiar with, so I played around a little bit. And they do these wordgram things, but the more often that word is mentioned, the bigger the word. And I don't know if somebody knows exactly what these are called. Word cloud. So I'll pass these around. I did the pros and cons of all 3 sites, so there's 6 sheets. If you want to take a look, it might be interesting to people, because I typed in everybody's comments, even if it was a paper survey. I just didn't sit down and compile, but we'll have some from the thing the other night. And then, how do you use the school facility? Oh, I need your glasses again. It's a good thing you're next to me. I didn't realize how small they were going to print. So, of the use for the facilities, of the 192 people again, 38.02 or 73%, or 73 people, said their child attends a school or will in the next 5 years. Town meeting use, 65.1 or 125 people, so that's pretty significant. Community use was 36.98 or 71 people. Playground was 48.44 or 93. Gymnasium was 19.27% or 37. And other, none of the above, which could be included, like with staff they'd write it in, 21.35% or 41 people. Thank you. And I will pass that around too. There's a nice color visual that kind of really pops out. And I can email this to everybody. It wasn't as organized for this meeting as I should have. How are we doing on our presentation? All right. Any other questions on the survey that I can answer while we're waiting for this, if this doesn't come up right away? Anything? Does that give you a good idea? I think we have this survey now, we'll get to it at the end, but it was $300. We have it for a year, so we can use it, as many times as we want, over and over again. Now that Christine has got me figured out how to use it, I think it'll be a very useful tool. It seems to be something that people are willing to participate in and find it easy to participate in. So I think it's money well spent. Good. Okay.
I think you got a good response. I know that there's a lot more registered voters in town.
Right. There's 3,444 registered voters in the town of Tisbury.
That's a pretty healthy response with that kind of short turnaround time. So
Good.
I would say that it was a very good.
Right. And it's very similar to how many people we get to a town meeting typically. So what if that means anything, I don't know, but okay. All right, we're gonna move. Oh, look at that. Now the lighting's not great on that.
Turn lights off as well.
Okay. Oh, then we're going back to
We're going back to, our update on the
Is the survey up, did you vote?
You wanna go over
Can
that?
we do that, just not jumping back and forth, or take a while? Sean,
Might take 1 minute.
Christina, do you wanna go over the PowerPoint?
I'm just thinking instead of jumping back and forth, it might be easier just to finish the survey.
Sure, is it up there? Is it loaded or?
Did you learn it?
Oh, okay.
Sorry, I thought this was gonna be correct. My mistake. All right, so anything else on the survey, any questions? Peter, if it's a big deal, don't worry about it. We can do it later. I guess since we're talking about it, we just have a discussion.
Yeah.
It does, I just should have. You know, while they're doing this, why don't we do an overview of the presentation, PTO and the Vision Council, because that's not something we have anything, I think, we have this presentation. So PTO, Don, you might remember, we had a handful of people, so it was a good turnout.
Friday afternoon.
Right, what was that count on that?
PTO,
Yeah,
10.
maybe 8, 10 people?
but we were all committee members. I think we had 2 parents.
Right, we had a couple staff that were in the back here, so maybe 10 to 15 people?
I would say disappointed.
Okay, so
I was disappointed as a parent.
it was on Friday at 3 o'clock, so it might have been a challenging day for people to come. We tried a different approach because I think a lot of people have been going to these forums and workshops, and we didn't want to keep reiterating the same information over and over. So we kind of went at it as let's truly look at the sites and bring everything back to meeting the educational needs of the students. And looking at the school meeting the educational needs of the students, how does the site address those challenges or benefits? So I had sat down with Ben Robinson and Cheryl Doble from the Vision Council in preparation for Monday night's presentation, and they were extremely helpful with gathering information and getting maps ready, so thank you to you guys. But the PTO, we had some good discussion. It probably went about an hour and a half, I think, right? But I mean, good discussion for the people who were there. It was a nice way to test the new format. So then leading up until the Vision Council, which we had great turnout at. Do we have a head count for that one?
You know, we had sign-ins of like 38 people, 39. I know that there were some that didn't sign in.
Okay.
So I'm thinking it was around 40 plus, or I think probably a little bit plus. I know we had 38, 39 on it.
Okay, great, which I thought was a great turnout. We had asked at the beginning if there were any people that hadn't been to, weren't familiar with the project and or having not been to a workshop forum, just so again, we weren't repeating. The majority of the people in the room, if not all, said they were familiar with it, so we didn't go over the town meeting presentation that we had ready just in case. We had a format ready similar to the PTO, but at the very beginning, people had a lot of questions. So we really never did our formal presentation. We tried to keep steering it towards that and bringing it back to the educational, but so many questions were out that we were there till about 8:20, from 6 to about 8:20.
It was long.
It was long, and that was just pretty much answering questions. We really never got to the point where we could kind of direct the presentation, which was great. It was fine. So, we probably didn't get as much discussion in about the education, the building and the site meeting the educational needs of the students because so many people came with a lot of questions. So we tried to address those questions before we moved on, but I think we had some great discussion.
Yeah, I think our intent with this one, and we shifted a little bit because we were trying to get people to focus on the site.
Right.
Because we haven't really had a lot of presentation about the details of the educational criteria.
Right.
And we're really trying to facilitate a conversation about preferences of site, and not only just the site, but why the site, and then to answer questions. So it was interesting because for me, and we have documentation that Libby took some great notes through the whole thing, and then I take my cryptic comments, and then, but what was interesting to me is I always try, after I've got all those comments, to try to sort them under themes. And so there were some things that came up for discussion that hadn't been brought forward. So a lot of conversation about the environmental value of the Manter site and the efforts that went into preserving that site. And this is something we got to think really carefully about because there was a reason for doing that.
Right. It was brought up, it was suggested, or person is pretty confident, that at a town meeting back in the eighties, and I'm working, I just didn't have time, I'm gonna go tomorrow morning. In the eighties at some point, at a town meeting, apparently there was a, request for the vote to purchase that land or some part of that land. Again, I don't have the details, just wanna make you guys aware of this. And the idea was to, make it available for open space. It may have had to do something with water availability down the road, if I'm correct. Correct me if I'm wrong.
Protecting the well.
Right.
Water. Yeah.
Okay. Again, we didn't have details, we just know it was the 1980s. The next morning, I emailed Jay Grandy and I emailed Hillary Conklin, who's the town clerk, to officially make a public request for public records. And unfortunately, Hillary's too busy right now with the vote next week, the elections, thank you. So I'm gonna sit down tomorrow and go try to narrow down the year and go through all the old not annual reports, town meeting reports, where it lists all the warrant articles, and I'm hoping to find that, so that the next meeting I can tell this committee exactly what was voted on and what the intention of that land was. Dan?
You might wanna talk to Ken Barwick, cause
Okay.
those, the lots that look like a ladder.
Right, oh yeah, that's the septic lagoon area.
No,
right?
not,
No?
no, I don't
Okay.
think so. No, I think that's Manor Well. They look like there's like a line of them.
Yeah, and it was bought by foreclosure.
One of those parcels
That's,
is part of
that's the
that.
septic lagoon, we were told that's the septic lagoon
Oh, that's the
area.
okay.
That's what we were told,
Okay,
by Ken
maybe it is.
Barwick.
Okay, all right, so then
Yeah, when we
that's,
sat
I
down
know
with
that
Ken.
was bought specifically for
Okay,
preservation.
and again, I'm gonna see, there was a couple people in the room that remembered the vote, like not exactly, but remembered it happening. Jay did, where did Jay go?
I'm right behind you.
Oh, hello. Jay, I think you did say that Ken Barwick,
Yeah, I
kind of,
spoke to them, 1980 to 93, somewhere in there.
so we have 18
83,
years.
yeah. It's in the email I sent.
So-
Yeah.
Yeah, I will find it. If there was a vote, I'll find it. But hopefully we can get some idea of exactly what it was. And I will hopefully come back to the next meeting with what happened and what the intention. Because obviously if the town's intention was for that to never be built on, even though the deed has no restriction, that's something this committee needs to consider and know about.
Yeah, so I think for me anyway, it was a really helpful conversation in getting out, community interests and concerns. And I think people were pretty articulate about the way they spoke about it. The other thing that came out was the importance of this location as being central to a vibrant community and the value that people place on the school as a resource and with kids being in this location. So there were some, and I know Libby's got a good summary of it that probably could be sent out to
Yep.
people.
Yeah.
I don't know, you could take my little,
Right.
my little sort thing might be useful for people that want to, I always like to see the themes that come out. So
Yes.
instead of just a complete documentation of here's all the things that were said, how do they cluster? Sort of like your word cloud.
Yes. So obviously because this happened Monday night, we didn't have time to get it out to the committee. Everything will get sent out to the committee so you can take your time to read it. I did go out on a limb, which I'm known to do. At the end of the meeting, it was very obvious that the majority of the people there had a very strong opinion. And that opinion is that they would like to see the school stay at the current site. And everybody in the room said yes. So I wanted to let you know that, because obviously a lot of school building committee members weren't able to attend that. But as best as we possibly can, I want to bring all that information back to you folks for consideration. I think that what Libby did for a summary and what Cheryl did, you'll get a really good idea, even some specifics of where people's comments are and their opinions, and some things that people felt very, very strongly about. And that was one of the things. But it was great conversation.
And just reiterating your point, people do have a lot of questions about the process still. It's not understood, and it's been going on a long time, and it's hard to help people understand it, but it's also really important to them. I think that our participation as a committee in some of these events, that we're hearing all the different perspectives, and I'm hoping that as we move forward, we can actually start to identify some of the criteria. This is the thing, at some point we've got to make a decision, and how we make that decision, and how we justify that decision, and how we explain. It's very important that we think about that and we start to incorporate that in some of our discussions. And I also think that we're seeing a lot more public here now at our meeting, which will be helpful.
Yeah, and one thing we did spend a lot of time that I don't want to forget to tell everybody here was there was some concern or a very strong suggestion by a few people in the audience, that the school building committee brings the choice, the preferred schematic design choice, to a town meeting for the voters to vote on. This committee was charged with a very specific process, and part of that process is for the school building committee to make the decision of the preferred schematic design, and hopefully it's because everybody that I think 19 people represents the community really well, and I think we've been really responsible in making sure that every area is represented and that people can reach people because we've posted the committee. Make sure you please are speaking to people about this and bringing those opinions, forward in your thinking and talking about, try to stay open-minded, try to stay unbiased. We have not had any discussion about narrowing down any kind of a specific decision yet with preferred schematic design. I tried to emphasize to the folks that were at this presentation that this committee is very open-minded and we want to hear public feedback. So please, just remember that, because I think there was a little frustration that from some people that the public's not going to be involved in this very important decision. They will be, just not in the matter of a town vote at that point. I wanted everybody to be aware of some really important things that happen, because it's when you're out in the community and talking to people. One gentleman came in and said that he came in and he already had heard on the street that the Manter site was chosen. And he was a little upset about that because he didn't like that the committee had already chosen it and then pretended to do this public forum. We're not doing that. And you guys all know that we're not doing that, but I want to make sure that when we're out speaking to the public about this important project, that that's very clear, that we're not stating an opinion on behalf of the school building committee. Because we haven't had that discussion yet, but we need to have it soon. But we're truly, I feel like we've been very transparent. If we're not, then tell us where we're not being transparent, we'll fix it. If we're not reaching out to a certain part of the community, tell us and we'll go there. I think we've racked our brains trying to make sure we can reach people through different forms of media, through different kinds of meetings, through knowing you're accessible, through email addresses. So just, any suggestions at any point are more than welcome. Yes, John?
On that note, and I don't know what the sort of mechanics of it would be, maybe Jay or Cheryl could help, but something that came out of that discussion with the Vision Council the other night was an acknowledgement that there's been a lot of outreach, but it's in smaller pockets, whether it be staff, PTO, Vision Council, Senior Center, but getting all those groups together under one roof, probably in the school gym, for lack of a better term, I think someone said it the other night, a public hearing. It wouldn't be a town meeting because there wouldn't be a warrant, but a larger discussion with all of the folks who want to be there. Yeah, I don't know if that's something but it was voiced the other night, and I thought there might be some value in that. I don't know.
Before we choose the preferred schematic
Exactly.
design. Dan?
Yeah, I actually think that's a great idea.
Okay.
The other thing was the word cloud thingy,
Yep.
the survey. I think it would be good to get that out into the paper.
Okay.
I think that would be great. Say, listen, we did this survey month, you still have time, here's what we have so far. We want to make it, let's do like a business brief or something. And just
So just kind of give the overall results?
I would give the, yeah.
Okay.
Is it still open?
No.
No, it closed at midnight on May
All right.
1st.
Well, we could reopen it, right? Is it
Sure,
a big deal?
we can do whatever we want.
Okay,
so it's
I would,
okay.
I would do a business brief with that information and say, listen, we're gonna do it for 2 more weeks. If you want it, please help us with this decision.
Do you think we should extend it? Is that what you're saying, as opposed to giving the summary?
I think you do a summary and allow them, right?
I don't know. If you're going to open it and continue to open it, I would not give the summary at this point. I would hold the summary.
All right, so
because
let me just play
but-
devil's advocate. Why would we extend it? Do we feel like people didn't know about it and didn't get an opportunity to respond to it?
I think you do it just to do it one more time.
Okay.
Just, it's kind of like crossing your I's, dotting your T's kind of thing. So
Okay.
but I do a business brief and just say, hey,
Up till this point, this is what our findings are. We're gonna do another 10-day,
yeah,
1 week
or
survey.
Cheryl's not saying, don't put the findings, but I don't.
I'm looking for more input.
Yeah, we're looking for more input,
And I
please.
would go back to the crew that's working with us. I don't like to put out the findings and then say, now we're opening it.
Right,
I
yeah,
don't think that's right, because now it's not an even sign, it's not.
So I
an
would
even
just
grade.
say, yeah, we
But I-
continue.
Also, if we're gonna do something with a town meeting or open format, we have to bring some structure to it, because we've come a long way. I don't wanna constantly be going back to step 1 and opening it
Yes.
broad. So we've got we've learned a lot from the survey,
Yes.
we've learned a lot from the vision meeting, and we are starting to see some patterns. So if we're gonna go forward with this, we have to somehow frame it, so that here's where we are, here's what we've heard, now we need more detail on some of these things.
Right.
So that we're digging deeper, rather than going back. I don't want this to end up to be, so far it's been, all of these events have been very constructive and positive, in my feelings. People have been really civil, people have been sharing ideas, it's been real constructive. I don't wanna get into a meeting where we separate people and we are trying to see who can scream the loudest. I would like to find a way that we can dig deeper for more information, and we need to understand as a group where those areas are. What do we still need to fill in? How would we manage it? That's just my thought. I mean, it's been positive so
Yes,
far, and
productive,
I would really like to keep that going in
Okay.
that way.
There was a couple, so Amy and then Melinda and then I saw V. I'm gonna try to get to committee members first, Jim, and then we'll,
So I guess my input would be, if we're going to have a public meeting, which I think is a great idea, sort of along the same lines, what's the purpose of that? Is the purpose to gather more information, or is the purpose to say, this is what we found through the survey, these are our findings, and we want you to understand the decision that we are going to make, or that we're inclined to make, so that people feel like they've been told? Or is it to gather more input? Because I think one of the things that we're talking about now is extending a survey by however much time, and then if there's gonna be a public forum, probably that would have to happen after the survey has closed and tabulated, which then puts us on a time frame that makes it, is the time frame getting, because we'll just keep, we're never going to get everybody to agree on it, and at some point, we have to say, we have done our due diligence in gathering data, we have evaluated, we'll have more information about whether there was a town vote, and taking all of that together to say, this is how we made this decision, and making sure people feel like that is informed, I think is really the critical part. So again, I think I'm fearful that a public meeting will erupt into a us versus them kind of a mentality if it's not a very narrow focus for which the purpose.
do you wanna
Can I
respond to
just,
that? Yep.
one of the topics on the agenda is update on the schedule, and we were on a track according to the last meeting for a May 18th submission, but we just now received MSBA comments, just 2 weeks before that submission, we have 2 weeks to respond to them, and our recommendation is to delay it to the next submission run. So I think it gives us some time.
Yeah,
to do
June
something.
20.
Yeah.
June 29, 20.
June 20.
So that this would still be within that time,
Right.
right, delayed.
But, yeah, to your point, Amy, I can just answer from being there the other night, whoever was at the other, the Vision Council meeting jump in, but people felt heard that night. They felt very heard, and I think that's where that hurdle, that we may feel like we haven't reached yet, if there's any, before we make a decision. I felt like we left that meeting, and some people felt heard. So I think if we can have one more, whatever, public forum, public hearing, I think that's we would say, at the before, as it's advertised, this is it. We're in this process, we're at a point where we feel very comfortable that we're ready, soon to be making a decision, that we feel comfortable with this timeline. This is the kind of the final opportunity, however we fill it. I think the survey, if we put it back out, we don't put the same survey back out personally. I think we tweak it and we change it to zone in on what you were talking about, Cheryl. I don't see the need, people have had, I feel like they were given so much opportunity in 10 days or whatever it is, and we're gonna miss some people, they might be away, but we reached them through paper and online, we put an ad in the paper. I don't know how else we could reach people that would make them fill out another survey. But if we change the survey and fine tune it to the point we put out the survey, that I see helpful. And then another opportunity for somebody who might not have done the first one. So anyways, that's my truth. Anybody else that was there? Yeah.
Well, you just sort of responded to the point I might have wanted to raise, and that is, have we learned something from the various meetings and the survey that prompt us to want to hone in on specific more questions in the additional survey that would give us, that would get at some different kind of feedback? If there is, then it might be useful to do a second survey. And I think you're going to get a lot of people who will be ready to comment when we send out the news bulletin that says we have decided on the site.
Right. And we want to hear from them now and not later.
Right, but we
Yes.
will, you know,
Yeah, you're both.
human
Yeah.
nature.
That's probably how you put it out there.
That's how you
I know
get
we haven't-
people to
Yep.
respond.
Yep, you're right. Erin, please. Oh, Pete, I'm sorry, sorry.
You know, Libby, I agree with Libby that although we only had, what, 190?
192.
Yeah, that is a good showing. It sounds silly, but it is. And I don't know what we want to do by pulling out another survey. You know, that's why we have April 15, your tax date, that's it.
Right.
We've had, and there's enough, I mean, it might give the impression that we're looking for another outcome. You know, are we getting our way by seeing this survey, these surveys?
Right.
You don't know, I mean, people have funny ideas, but I think it's a waste of time. We have a time schedule. I think there has to be enough outreach. I mean, we were away, so I didn't get the survey in time, but, you know.
So let me ask a question. Are committee members right now, if you had to make a decision today, and I'm not saying we're going to, I'm just saying hypothetically, would you feel like you have enough information, you're comfortable enough to make a decision? That you don't need any more public input? Do you feel like you've gotten everything you need to make your decision?
No.
It's
No.
okay.
Can I just add?
Okay.
I really think that we need to hear more from the parents. I really feel that parents have questions and, just for example, a parent spoke to me about the school, and her impression was that we're building a new school because we're projecting more students to come. She didn't understand that we're not trying to build a school to encompass more children, we're building a school to meet the educational needs of today. So I felt like she just didn't have the information. And unfortunately, our parents are the busiest people and the hardest people to try to give up some free time. So, but they're the ones that really, I appreciate everyone's input, but I'm really going to appreciate the input from people who are going to send their children to the school. So if there's a way, I mean, if we were going to decide to reach out further, I don't know if we're allowed to do this, but it would be great to send home a paper survey with the students and try to get parent input, or give them an opportunity to ask questions about really why are we building a school, and what is education today, how has it changed so much that we feel that we need to build a school to match those changes. I think that's really why we're here, right?
Right. So to your point, and maybe there's another way that we can reach them, all parents were sent a link to the survey, correct, John?
Yes.
Yeah, and we had paper surveys available in the lobby for teacher conferences. We had 3 parent-teacher conference days this past week. They were out. So I'm just like, how do we reach people that we know they were exposed to them and were offered to do one, and they chose not to? So how do you reach that group, and why aren't they participating?
They check their kids' folder more than they read your emails, unfortunately.
Okay.
They do.
I mean, can we use a carrot, I'm sorry, I'll jump in before the show, a carrot? So,
I don't know.
well, meaning the surveys go with the children, and the children have some sort of incentive, to make mom and dad. No, I mean, it's not a derogatory thing, or a disincentive. It's just a way to say, hey, mom and dad, I got this, will you fill it out? Or let's do it, actually, what it should be is a family project.
Yeah, and the kids did their
Yes,
assignments.
Libby.
so
Yeah,
that
I
was
was just
it.
Yeah, so,
Yeah, so we gave all the children, the entire population, an assignment
That's right.
to think about or
Right.
design or draw
yeah,
a space that's important to
Yeah,
them
he's got
in the news, and that's part of it. So I thought it would be nice to present the children's ideas to the parents. So we do a parent presentation.
We can do whatever this committee wants to do. Yes. All right, let's take 2 more questions, 3, and then I want to get to the survey so you guys can have that information too. Well, they can support this.
I was just gonna say, a lot of questions have come out of these sessions, like what about the traffic study, what about this, what about that?
And those
I
aren't
think
happening.
I think if we can begin to say, what are the questions out there that we still need to understand better?
Yeah.
And can we get that information, and then we bring that back? Because I think one of the things that we really should strive for is helping people understand all these questions that they've raised. And there's a lot of them that have come forward that we have not answered fully yet. And I think that we need to be able to find a way to share that effectively so that people understand it.
Okay.
Often that is part of a website, you know, those
Okay.
kind of questions.
So maybe we get that information out better. So we'll do Catherine, and then I think Reed, you had your hand up, and Richie, and then let's get to the survey so we can see that.
Well, kind of piggybacks on
Yep.
what she was just saying, because I think, just after talking with staff, I think a lot of staff are sort of frightened as to the process if it is on this location, in terms of how that's gonna affect, you know, educating these kids. And I feel like we really haven't gotten more specific information as to how that would work, whether it's renovating the building or a new building. You know, they've said there'll be trailers. Well, what does that mean? And I think as a parent who has a child here, granted, I wouldn't be voting in that way because I'm the rep for the staff, for a certain percentage of staff here.